What's going on, guys? I'm building a half pipe with loft right here in my garage. So yes, I'm finally building some ramps at my house. If you couldn't tell from my intro, BMX has been a big part of my life for a long time, and I've always wanted to have some ramps of my own at my house. And so now I'll show you exactly what I have planned. So right here is gonna be where the half pipe goes. So this mark on the floor, this will be where the half pipe starts. It basically lines up with the end of the door. So it has to end there, obviously, so I don't block the doorway. And this right here is going to be the flat deck part of the half pipe. It's going to be about 5 feet high. So it'll be the flat deck here, and then it'll go into this quarter pipe, and then there's about 8 to 9 feet of flat section, and then another quarter pipe on the other wall. And like I said, it's going to be about 5 feet high. My ceilings in here are 14 feet, so I didn't want to go too high with the half pipe that you'd be airing out and possibly hitting the ceiling. So 5 foot is a good number, and it's also a good number to get some 5 foot by 10 foot plywood for the sides, so that'll work out nice. And I'm also thinking the overall width of it is going to be about 10 foot. I'm going to space it off the back wall a little bit, because if you go the whole way to the wall, it's really wasted space, especially for bikes, because you can't ride right next to the wall because you have your handlebars. So I think it's going to be 6 inches to a foot off the wall there, and then it's going to be 10 foot, so it'll come out to around this area. And the other portion of this build is going to be a loft. So that's another thing that ever since I built this place, and even before, I've always had in mind that I wanted some type of a loft space in the garage. It's just really nice to utilize, the high ceilings, and I can use it for storage or a nice little hangout area if I want. And so right where the half pipe ends, right where the flat deck ends right here, this is where the loft space will be. And so the loft is going to be 12 feet off the wall, which is right around this line. So I'm going to need to have a post here, a post over there, and then a post at the wall. And I'm trying to set it up so that I have equal headroom below and above. I think it ends up being about 6'7" on both the lower level and the upper level. And the overall loft section will be about 12 feet by 19 feet. So that'll be a good amount of space here that I'll be able to have whatever I want up there, like I said, storage or a nice hangout area. And of course, since I am an engineer, I have the entire setup designed in CAD. So now we can head inside and I can go over the exact details of what I've planned. Okay, here's what I started with. This is the back portion of my garage. You can see this is the door that goes into my living space. I threw in just a quick toilet and sink just so I knew where they were relative to everything else. This is a 14-foot high wall by about a 50-foot overall width. And here are the first parts of the half pipe. So these are the sides of the ramp. These will be made from 3/4 inch plywood. And to get this curve right, what we did was we measured a local skate park's ramps that we kind of like and think they feel pretty good for the height that we are going for. And when you have a 5-foot ramp, you kind of need to get that curve just right so that you can still air out pretty well with it being so short. So we took some measurements from that other ramp, and I basically just tried to match this curve as best as I could. And I'll be trying to cut both of these out of a single sheet of 5-foot by 10-foot plywood. And next I started to put in the supports that go from side to side. And these are all 2x4s. I have them spaced at about 12 inches on center. I think that's going to be about right. We'll kind of see as we start building if that seems like enough. I think it will be. I have those all along the curve section and then also the top deck. And now for the other side, it's going to be the same exact thing. I think the only real difference is the deck width here. I have it a little bit shorter on this side. That's another thing that we'll kind of fine tune once we start building and we see how much space exactly we want between them and then what kind of deck width we can live with on either side. Then we've got the flat bottom section here that will connect both of the quarter pipes, and that's what really makes this a nice half pipe. If you don't have this flat bottom section, it's not nearly as smooth of a transition normally from the quarter pipe to the ground. So with this section being studded in like that, you can make the transition from this quarter pipe to flat and then back to the other quarter pipe really nicely with the top layer of plywood. and I have this part studded out with 2x3s instead of 2x4s. It really doesn't need much strength as far as bending capability because it is sitting right on the ground. So doing the 2x3s will save a little bit of cost, and it will in turn make the quarter pipe ramp section an inch higher, which actually got us a little bit closer to the ramp we were modeling these after. And I'm planning to probably even add more supports than what is here, because I do want to have the capability to drive a car onto the flat section if I really need extra space in the garage. It would just be nice that I could back a car up onto this, probably put a little bit of a ramp here to have that flexibility. And this flat portion is about 10 feet long, and it's nice to have a good amount of space between the two quarters. You don't want to be landing and then going right into the other quarter if you're doing like some technical trick. And next I added the plywood sheeting on top. I believe I'm going to be using 1/2 inch for everything. You definitely need to use 1/2 inch or even less for the curve section, because if you try to bend something thicker, it will crack. We've even cracked 1/2 inch before, but it was on a tighter curve. So I think it's going to work fine for this. For the top deck, you could use 3/4. I think we'll probably stick with 1/2 inch and just make sure we have enough studs underneath to support it. And then if that isn't quite smooth enough, we can always go back over with something really thin. Like in the past, we used like 1/4 inch. Something nice and smooth to get rid of any inconsistencies, or if you have any slight cracks in the 1/2 inch plywood. So that is the half pipe section. Like I said, it's 5 feet high by 10 feet wide, and it's about 29 feet total length. And now we can move on to the loft section. So I'm going to start by securing these plates to that back wall. And I have 2x6 studs in this wall, so we can lag these to those studs, and that will be a really strong connection, and we won't have the need to add any additional posts on the back here. I am dealing with this doorway, which really isn't at the best spot, but to get like an even headroom at the bottom and on the top floor, this is where I needed to place these plates. So I have that cut out there, and you'll see exactly how I plan on tying the joists into that, but I think it's going to work. And to support the other side, I'm going to have these 6x6 posts, and I'll also be securing these to the floor with probably some angle brackets here, so that it's screwed into the concrete so it can't move around at all. But those should be very solid using 6x6s as opposed to using, you could use like a 4x4, but I want this to be super strong. And then I'm also going to notch them out like this so my plates can just sit right in there just like that. And I am actually doubling up on this side with the plates. It would probably be okay with one, but I don't want to run the risk of it sagging at all. And I also know that if I'm going to be jumping off this ramp on a bike and landing up here, it's going to be a lot of force concentrated. And next I laid out all of the floor joists. So I currently have them 14 inches on center, which I think will be sufficient. Normal would be probably more like 16 inch, but like I said, I want this to be very strong, and so that if I land in one section, it can distribute the load really nicely. And here's the detail I'm dealing with at the doorway. So I want to notch these up so that when you open the door from the inside, you're not looking at the end of a piece of wood. That would not look good. So I'm going to notch these up. I still have 4 inches here, but then I think I'm going to also add some type of bracing to make this section a little bit stronger as well. So the entire floor structure is 2x10s. So these are all about 12 feet long. So this is going to be 12 feet this way by 19 feet this way. And then lastly, I just added some plywood on top. And this is going to be regular 3/4 inch subfloor. So it's actually made to be a floor, and it's normally tongue and groove, so they kind of lock together really nicely. And so overall, that should be a very solid structure. And next I added some 2x3s here to stud out this, because I'm going to put a little wall there. Since I am going to be jumping from the ramp onto the loft section, I want to close this in, just so you don't fall through that. Or if you use this lip for something and then you jump back in, it'll just be a lot nicer if that's a solid wall. So I have that studded with 2x3s and then just a sheet of 1/2 inch plywood on top. And here's just a quick staircase I threw in. I'm really not sure on the exact placement,
but I do kind of like it here because if I would put the stairs, you know, underneath the loft, then I'll have to have a cutout in the floor somewhere, and then that will just waste space on top. So this spot seems kind of nice. Yeah, I lose a little bit of floor space from my garage for cars, but it's really not that bad. I'm not going to make it a big staircase. Right now I have it only 18 inches wide. Doesn't need to be anything crazy, just enough to be able to carry, you know, some car parts up there if I need to store, so you don't have to just like run up the ramp and then jump up here to get up into the loft. So that's everything I modeled, but there's definitely some more details that will be added. Like I want a railing here on the loft so you know it's a little safer so you don't fall off the side of it. Another thing I was thinking, it would be really nice to put in some shelving underneath here on the quarter pipe, and then if the stairs are here I could put shelving underneath here as well. Another detail I didn't completely work out yet is I do want to have access behind this quarter because there is a window here, and it would be nice to also use this one as storage because if it's completely against the wall then it will all be wasted space. So I'm thinking I might frame out some type of a doorway here so I can get back there pretty easily. Also now with the loft here, it will make it a little easier to build some walls so I can finally maybe have some walls around my toilet. That might be nice to add, maybe an L-shaped wall with a little door on this side. So that is the design, and I wanted to do this just because it makes it a lot easier to visualize what it's going to look like, what the sizes need to be, and although it's not perfect, it's going to give me a really good idea of how much wood I'm going to need, and then I can create a bill of materials, and then from that I can get a pretty good cost estimate as well. Also, I wanted to mention, I get a lot of questions regarding some of the tools that I use. So I've started to list my most commonly used tools down below in the description, along with links for where you can buy them. I'm not going to list every single tool, but things like my welders, grinders, the stuff I use in a lot of my videos I'll have down there. And I'll have my main camera gear listed down there as well if you're interested. And I'm not endorsed in any way by these companies. I'm simply listing them because I get a lot of questions about it. So that's going to be it for today. I'm hoping to get this project started very soon. And for those of you following the Mustang build, don't worry, I've got some more changes coming for that in the near future.